Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are chatting with Kat, who is a remedial sports masseuse, amongst other things. And today we would like to discuss injuries, how to prevent them, and Kat is going to share her knowledge with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, Armand, it's so good to be here. So good to also be in your CrossFit box. So thanks for such an epic session this morning.
Pleasure.
All right, so before I dive into injuries, how they occur, and how stretching, mobility, and massage can support the total recovery of that, I would love for you to just chat about like the general physical skills in CrossFit and what the guys are actually doing here in the box.
Hundreds. So in CrossFit, we would like to develop a broad overall fitness which encompasses all of the 10 general physical skills, starting with cardiovascular, endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, accuracy, and balance. So nature doesn't really make a distinction between these, but we like to break them up and just to understand what they mean a little bit better. In CrossFit, we tend to focus on the strength aspect and lifting heavy weights and getting nice and fit, but we forget that the neurological components of this, including the balance, the agility, coordination, flexibility, is actually what allows us to achieve those goals. So if we neglect them, if we neglect the mechanics and the safety of the movements, then we can actually impair our performance and our improvement because we are inhibiting the muscles, and if we get injured, then we cannot be consistent, which is a key aspect of developing your physical fitness. We all know the importance of not getting injured, or the hassle of having to go to a bio or a physio every second week, taping up, having to use gear to protect yourself, and how that inhibits you from hitting your maxes and actually growing at your greatest potential. So Kat, maybe you want to get us started on how we get injured and hopefully how we can prevent that.
100%. So, I mean, I specialize in supporting high performers and athletes optimize their physical performance through the massage therapy and helping them understand what actually happens in their physiology when they're training. So this is something called the stages of injury. Now, if you've ever felt into your shoulders, you'll feel like these big caduceus, those are called knots. We call them the first stage of injury, which is your secondary tension. Now, I'm actually going to draw what actually happens in the muscle when we're training. And this is anything from, like we were doing today, where we're looking for our 1 rep max in our pull-ups. We are putting the muscles under stress. So what happens on a very microscopic level is we create what is known as a microscopic tear. It is a tiny, tiny, tiny tear. Now this happens from training and occupational stress. It happens just from general movements in your body. It's inevitable that these micro tears happen on a daily basis. Now this microscopic tear takes between 12 to 24 hours to fully recover, right? But during the time of recovery, the surrounding tissues, the surrounding fibers will then tighten up, right? That's our secondary tension. It will tighten up to ensure that this initial tear has got time to recover, right? So they kind of like hug it. They squeeze it, they hold it in place so that it has got adequate time for it to recover. And this takes between 12 to 24 hours. Now the thing is when people are overemphasizing, pushing harder, pushing harder, pushing harder, not resting, not focusing on adequate recovery, what then happens is more, right, microfibers tear, which results in more secondary tension being created.
Kat, can I just ask you something? So when we do these type of exercises, hypertrophy exercises, etc., we actually want a level of micro tears happening in the muscles.
Yes, you do.
So that they can recover and get stronger. But if I'm understanding you correctly, if we don't give them time to recover properly,
yes,
then we're actually impairing the muscle's ability to contract properly, the mechanics of the muscles, thereby creating additional stress points which then lead to these micro lesions.
Absolutely. So this then, the brain recognizes this as an injury, right? And if the guys are going to continue to keep pushing through that pain, through that discomfort, thinking that it's going to go away, Sadly, it's not. What the brain's going to do is it's going to turn that part of the muscle off, right?
To prevent you from causing more damage.
100%. The brain's like, listen, if we utilize this, which is currently in a state of repair, if we utilize this, it's going to lead to a major injury where it could perhaps be a major tear from the insertion part of the muscle, and the body doesn't want that. So it'll actually switch this part of the muscle, which the guys are now still utilizing that muscle, putting 100% load on 70%, expecting it to function at 100%. And that's where they see a decrease in strength, they see a decrease in stamina, they see a decrease in their endurance, in their overall performance, and they're recovering a hell of a lot slower. And one of the major things that a lot of my clients, when they first step into my practice room, is they say, oh no, it's age. It's got nothing to do with age. Age is a huge factor when it comes to metabolism and the change of hormones, but what is going to keep them at their optimal level of performance mentally and physically is ensuring that we can keep the muscles healthy, is ensuring that as much emphasis and oomph they put into their training regime, they are putting that same amount of oomph into their recovery routine.
I heard this analogy recently of a tall, let's say 10-story building, and we have an earthquake knocking down the first, say, 3 levels of the building, and then we need guys to come in, the construction guys, to rebuild the top 3 stories. But if there is another earthquake before they've had a chance to rebuild the top 3 stories, then we're going to knock off an additional 3 stories. And so forth and so forth. So if we don't give the muscles time to recover properly and give the guys time to rebuild the building, then we're going to end up in the long run with a much shorter building than we would if we just allowed the repair process to happen naturally. I think something else that might be worth to mention is if this part of the muscle is inactive, and as you said, the muscle or the brain will contract the muscle to try and protect it, now we're immediately putting additional strain on the ligaments, on the joints,
100%.
as well as probably through a compensation mechanism use different muscles to accomplish the same task, which might lead to additional problems and other issues.
Muscle compensation, incorrect use of the muscles, postural imbalances, and so it just escalates onwards. So we want to ensure that we don't get to that point. And even if they are at that point where their bodies are just compensating so much and there is heavy postural imbalances, we can rectify that through correct training, through using the muscles correctly, through remedial sports massage, through flexibility and mobility conditioning. So no matter where they are, as long as that muscle hasn't ripped off that attachment or insertion point, we can support it to get back to optimal condition. I look so forward to future videos with you and just educating people on movement, on breathing, on how to optimize their mental and physical performance in a very holistic way, but in a way that really honors their body and where they want to get to.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be very, very beneficial, and we encourage all of our members and maybe somebody who has never been to the gym to come and join us. Kat will be hosting some mobility, flexibility and agility classes, strength classes, which slightly differ from the program we have going here, as well as offer her services as a remedial sports masseuse and one of the other methodologies.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Kat, for coming. We hope to see you guys soon. Keep stretching and keep your bodies healthy